most misunderstood poems in the history of the English language has got to be Robert Frost's Two Roads Diverged in a Yellow Wood, The Road Not Taken. The title of it, The Road Not Taken, is irresistible. People just love romanticizing that. It shows up an awful lot in college commencement addresses or something like that. If you go to a graduation ceremony, there's always some fairly self-important speaker who will get up there and say, well, you know, the most important words that I can think of to impart to you the wisdom of the ages is Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. And they talk about how, you know, the journey of their life has led them to where they are today, and it's all about the choices they have made along the way, and they feel very justified in doing that. And the poem is, in its own way, allowing that interpretation, but at the same time, if you read it closely, if you actually engage with the words, it is lambasting the very people who would do that, because it's much more complicated than the fuzzy appearance might seem. It's way more sophisticated. Robert Frost is, of course, the very cozy New England, poet. He looks very informal. He looks very homey. He looks very rural. But in fact, he is very, very crafty and sophisticated in a very surprising, to a very surprising degree. He's not so homespun and simple. And the poem kind of bears that out. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, and just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. It's really quite striking. Two roads diverge in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. First of all, you have that kind of crusty New England feeling of of autumn, of a perhaps quiet country back road. You can just see, like, covered bridges and low stone fences all over the place, hilly fields rolling into the distance, and yellow wood, that autumnal New England feeling that we all just love so much. It seems so cozy, and it's a postcard. But the postcard picturesque quality slowly bends in this poem into a somewhat more disturbing thing. I looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. That picture postcard image is suddenly considering, well, what's going on underneath that? What's a little bit more what's the hidden truth that maybe we're not seeing? There's some dark feelings festering up there that we're just hinting at, but we're really just trying to perhaps elide. Then took the other as just as fair. So, there's no real difference between the two roads, and perhaps having the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. Well, maybe there is a difference. Is there a difference or isn't there a difference? It's a little uncertain. He seems to be congratulating himself for it being a little bit for being different, but he just admitted that it really didn't look that different at all. So perhaps we're in the realm of the unreliable narrator here. Perhaps the voice here is having some difficulty imagining these two and judging them. Significantly, this is taking place in the past. This is somebody recollecting what happened. So maybe we're dealing with a faulty or perhaps active but not candid memory, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. Again, we're back to there being, well, they're not really that different, but they are different, but now they're not really that different again. We're kind of all over the map on this. This is clearly not somebody whose perception we can really trust. And both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. Uh, well, first of all, again, we're confronted with that image of them being essentially the same. The two roads are essentially the same, and the idea of trodden black. Black is a curious color to call in there, because yellow feels very autumnal, yellow leaves and all, but black, I mean, do leaves really turn black when they're down? Maybe, well, when they fall and they perhaps get trampled on and they're in the mud, then perhaps, yeah, but still, that's somewhat extreme. But again, another hint of the dark underbelly going on here, the that mysterious darkness that the poet can't quite confront, and so is sort of pasting over somewhat. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Another day? He kept it, as in, like, okay, well, next time I come back here, I'll go that way. That's a curious little lingering feeling, like, okay, I can't make a decision one to the other, so I'll go here, but oh, I'm just gonna, I'll get to that one next time. He's not really giving it up. He's not really making a choice. He's not saying this one, not that one. He's saying this one first, then that one. It's a little uncertain. It's like the poet is, or the poetic voice is having an argument with himself. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever coming back. So again, we're back on the other thing. He says, okay, yeah, I'll be back. But now he's saying, well, maybe I won't. So this is somebody who's really not particularly trustworthy. You can make an argument that he is really quite waffly in this. He's just not really coming down hard anywhere on this. I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. Ages and ages kind of jumps out because it's so melodramatic. Ages and ages, that makes it sound like you're going to live to 200 years old and be recounting when you were, a bright sprig of 17. And also the I shall seems very suddenly formal, sounds very thunderous almost. I shall be telling this. It's not that homey informality that we have come to expect from the poem so far, that seems much more casual. And somewhere ages and ages hence, and hence again a very formal, old-fashioned, but austere, august word. It's a hence is a word you would find, in the great orators of the Roman Empire, perhaps. Well, translations of them by the Victorian Englishmen. Two words diverged two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. Again, that repetition, ages and ages, sort of makes it sound, again, very momentous. And he repeats I took the one less. It's like he's jumping up on the soapbox, absorbing all the spotlight and declaiming to the crowd, I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. Well, is it really less traveled by? Because he went back and forth so many times on whether or not anybody had actually walked through there, and is there really any difference? I no, you can't really claim that. But in that last stanza, it's jumping out that he is staking this. The poet is staking this. The poetic voice is staking this as some massive turning point in his life, a momentous choice that dictated all that followed. Presumably, this is somebody who's very comfortable. Presumably, this is somebody who likes to feel that he has done the proper things in life and that he is deserving of all of the accolades. This is one of the reasons that it tends to go over so well in speeches when people want to seem like they have made good choices in their life. It is the road less traveled by, as if it's, I didn't take the easy way out. Well, here there's no indication that this road was any more difficult or easier than the other one. They're both the same. The choice then is arbitrary, and it doesn't seem to make any difference whatsoever. But this last stanza puts so much weight on it, puts so much import into it, that it makes it seem like, well, it wasn't an important thing, but it wasn't an important choice, but the person who made it seems to be leaning on it so much that he's made it important to himself. He has created a kind of order in his life, order in the universe that, frankly, there's no evidence to suggest exists. He is so confident, thundering, and I took the one less traveled by. He is so thunderous, so confident, so ebullient in that declaration that you have to figure, well, where is he getting this from? Where is this logic coming from? What structure do you see in the universe that leads you to the conclusion that that decision led to where you are now? The title itself is a little bit of a mystery also, because the title ups it even more. The title is not the road less traveled; it is the road not taken. Um, it is this lingering phantom in his past that maybe he is still wondering. Well, what if I did take that? It seems to be so much more in his mind that, what if I did take that road? What if things did go a little differently? Could it be different? So suddenly it's not so comfortable for him. You get the impression of a voice who is less self-confident in his choices, and less perhaps happy about them, less settled, and maybe a little bit more disturbed, because he's remembering this and perhaps creating it out of a sense of desperation, remembering this past decision that he made and thinking, well, what if I went a different way? It seems to be taking on some weight that life and fate don't necessarily agree with, but in his mind, he's dwelling on it as if it's haunting him. The poem itself, the spacing of it, or the rhyme and the meter is surprisingly regular for as ordinary as it comes out. But the rhyme scheme is very simple: A B A A B. The meter is a tetrameter, 4 beats for line. It's very unassuming. It sounds like conventional speech. You have to actually go back and reread it, with a kind of metronome, to realize exactly how precise the meter is, with little homey knots and knurls from time to time. But it is surprisingly structured. Again, belying that kind of form and content. It sounds like just, a homely old guy coming and telling you something, but the structure itself is actually very formal, very neatly and firmly wrought. So it gets you dwelling on that difference between what is being said and how it's being said. And maybe there's a difference between them that is instructive because it seems to be hinting at there's much more to this than meets the eye. Um, the sense of irony seeps out of it very slowly and suggests that the world is more complicated than perhaps human beings can perceive. And human beings themselves are so caught up in their own self delusions, perhaps, and illusions about the world and the organization of the world that we cannot perceive the truth about reality. We cannot understand or at least accept the nature of chaos in the world, a disordered universe, a universe that does not lead to a positive conclusion, that is not logical and controlled and in place. The idea that there is disorganization in the universe is very disturbing. And so we create illusions, we create narratives for our lives when perhaps it's just an unbroken train of random occurrences and irrelevant decisions. Frost is very good at making complex things seem very simple, while at the same time keeping just that little twist available, that little complication, that fly in the ointment, that knot in the wood that suggests it's really not that simple. Life is difficult. Life is complicated. Life is